Hi Brock students, my name is Mateo, the president of MRT. We went through a couple of labs and we asked a couple of people what are their experiences, advices, and some of the tips that they want to share to students who are eager to start their research career.
Thesis and research in general has just always been something that's intrigued me. Just being able to add to the collective knowledge of society is something I find very valuable.
Well, I've always been interested in science, always wanted to figure out how things work. Chemistry was kind of a natural extension of that.
I had another fabulous teacher in first year chemistry who showed me that you could actually be between the two major disciplines, which essentially is biochemistry, and I followed that route ever since.
I think Brock has a specific ability to give undergrads the potentials to pursue research early on in their career.
But then I ended up just sending out a bunch of emails and he's like, yeah, sure, come on in and we'll set you up in my lab. So then
we are a strong research school that hasn't become layered with all kinds of administrative interference, I guess. So we're in a beautiful new building. You can easily talk to your colleagues, whether you're a student, a summer student. It's easy to walk into somebody else's lab or shared sitting space for graduate students and undergraduate students. It's a little more personable that way. And
even if your grades aren't the best and you're kind of ashamed to talk to professors because you feel oh, they'll judge me if I talk to them, talk to them. It's always important, and usually it ends up better than you think. So with
grades sometimes correlate with lab experience, but not always, or lab skills, sorry. And that's something I would probably stress about the chemical and biochemical research environment, is that you have a theoretical side. That's stuff you have to know. But putting it into practice, as you see from machinery and instruments around me, is a wholly different skill set.
grades don't really mean a whole lot as long as you show interest and kind of passion of what the professor is doing.
You can give many students opportunities to expose themselves to new technology, new knowledge about the molecular type of research. And this molecular type of research is essential for both biology and chemistry as well as medical type of research.
I think it's a good way for students that are trying to get into research positions to have a way to show professors that they're already skilled and already knowledgeable in their field enough that a professor can give them a project and that they have some reason to succeed.
That sounds really cool. It sounds like it's definitely more of a viable option and more of kind of a beneficial option for people to take rather than just doing it for volunteer experience or a little bit of funding if they're lucky.
That's excellent. That's fantastic, because I think what people like myself, professors, tend to forget is how fearful we were the first time we stepped in a lab. The opportunity to be responsible for your own skill set is part of being a scientist, and to get that kind of training early on is absolutely fabulous. It gives you a sense of confidence to be able to enter the lab and use techniques immediately to address a research question.
So there are a couple things I noticed. So for many of students, before they enter a research lab, they're always concerned they don't have a sufficient knowledge and ability to be working in a certain research field.
I would say to learn as many techniques as you can. Learn specifically for chemistry, there's so many different ways to do the same thing, and they each have a different effect. So the more techniques you know, the more ways to solve the problem you know, the easier your time will be, the more time you'll save.
Even if you go to a research lab, so our responsibility is to train you to become a researcher. So
I'm going to turn that question around and say that rather nothing differentiates it, because we do research just like everyone else. When a professor has funds to do research and to pay people to join their group, they do so by competing with everybody else in Canada. There are no gifts. Everyone scrambles and survives by their own skill and taking of opportunities. So we play with everyone else, the big boys, the big girls. We are just as good as anybody else. Don't undersell that we somehow choose less difficult projects or topics. It's simply not the case.